Well,
I guess we're being recorded, folks. There we go. Okay, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us, especially many of you with such late notice. I can't tell you how delighted I am to see the faces of first years. I've talked to one or two of you already, but just to see all of you, or so many of you in one place at one time, is really a joy. It kicks off the school year for us who have been waiting for you to come. I'm Nora Silver. I'm the faculty director and the founder of the Center for Social Impact at Haas. I came here about 15 years ago at actually the demand of students who wanted more social impact at the school and participated in hiring me to build something for people interested in social impact. And I'm joined today by Ellen Kimball, who is a second year. Ellen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen Kimball. I'm a second year in the full-time MBA program. So welcome. We've been, the second years have been so excited for all of you to join us and are excited to take classes with you and be in the same community for a very strange year. Prior to Haas, I worked in social impact. I taught first. I taught in Germany as a Fulbright English teaching assistant. And then I worked for 5 years at Europe Bay Area, which is a workforce development education program. And I guess I'll leave it there and answer any questions later.
Okay, and I'll have you come back certainly and talk about your experience as a Berkeley Board Fellow. Two other people, Mark Westover is the Associate Director at the Center, and Stephanie Van Nassau, Stephanie, is our Program Coordinator. So you have all of us, almost all of us today. So I just want to say, because you're just really starting Haas, there is so much at Haas and at Cal about social impact for you, and this is a good place to start. Rather than overwhelm you, I'm going to focus on the first things that I think you should know as you're coming in, what's right in front of you, what's available to you, and leave plenty of time for your questions. So I'm going to cover three things. One is Berkeley Board Fellows, which is a program, the courses we offer, a class called Social Sector Solutions, a student advisory board we have, and then we'll end with a slide on contacts, how you can get in touch with me or with Ellen moving forward, okay? So let's just jump in. I'm gonna start with courses. And because of how we're starting this year and what a strange year it is, we've really skinnied down our courses for the fall and loaded them up in the spring, mostly because of being virtual and having some hope of being in person in the spring, but also most of your electives happen in the spring and not the fall. So Mark, could you put up the slide, please, on the courses for the fall? We have two courses, and they're both one-unit courses offered on Sundays. So they fit really well into your schedule. Okay, could you go to slide? Is there another way to do this? Yeah. Okay, all right. I want to talk about these two courses. So the first is social impact marketing. And this really is across sectors. So nonprofits, social enterprises, companies, public sector. And it's based on real cases from real advertising consulting firms. The person who teaches it, Courtney Buchert, is the principal at a place called 11, a firm in San Francisco that does some very edgy stuff. If you've seen like Dignity Health and Human Kindness, that's out of their shop. They're very kind of humanity oriented, and Courtney's simply brilliant. So I really can recommend that course. We're trying something different. We're trying it on 4 Sunday afternoons. So to try to not take up your whole weekend, maybe you come back if you're traveling, 2 to 6 on 4 Sunday afternoons. It will be very interactive. You'll design something as well as critique campaigns that are going on. The other course is nonprofit boards. And I don't know if any of you have had the experience of sitting on a board yet, but at Haas, we believe that governance is a form of leadership that's really important for you to learn and to experience. And in looking at doing some research with 2,000 leaders in the US, so many of them have sat on boards, and that's accelerated their career. We want to make that more accessible to you earlier in your career. So This one is taught by Lynn Lamarca Heinrich. I want to emphasize that nonprofit boards is taught both in the fall and in the spring. So Lynn is a consultant to organizations. She's worked with hundreds of boards, such as PBS, such as Smithsonian. And so she's teaching that course, and she's adapted it very much to current events, what's going on in the world right now, and how boards need to address that. So those are our two courses for the fall. Okay. And I'm happy to answer questions either as we go along, if you want to wave and we can see you, happy to answer them. And we're leaving plenty of time at the end as well. Okay, so next slide. What? Berkeley Board Fellows. Well, this is not a course, this is a program, but we're piloting something new this year. So if you talk to second years who have done that, you hear from Ellen, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little different in 3 different ways. One is, for the first time, we're going to offer 1 unit of credit. It's awarded in the spring, but the Berkeley Board Fellows program goes from October to April. The way you get into Berkeley Board Fellows is you will apply. You can see the applications are due September 18th. We're also going to have an additional info session on September 4th to describe more of that. And you'll hear from Ellen in just a minute. But differences this year, 1 unit of credit. So you'll have to take one of the nonprofit boards courses, either in the fall or in the spring, for this reason. And you will also have a coach. We'll have professional coaches who've been board members working with you. Fellows are placed in pairs working with a nonprofit board. And this year, rather than having 50, 60, 70, 80 board fellows, we're only going to have 20 because we're focusing on 10 organizations that work with kids in high impacted areas by COVID and racial injustice. And when we went out and asked our organizations, we've traditionally worked with 30 to 40. What about board fellows this year? A good half of them we talked to said, we are so impacted, we just can't do it this year. We'll come back next year. But for those who really wanted to do it, they feel a real urgency and need to have your help, mainly for them to adapt either to online services or to COVID and health, or to expansion in terms of racial justice and who they're serving. But these are organizations, again, they all serve kids in high needs area, and they range from arts to health to education, across the board. But that's our focus for this year. And so what do you do as a board fellow? You do 3 things. You attend the board meetings. And the board meetings are generally once a month or once every other month. Okay, so you attend the board meetings, you participate, you prepare and participate in the board meetings. You're a non-voting member, and that's both to protect you and to protect the organization. You participate in a committee. A committee could be finance, it could be board development, evaluation, metrics, wherever the need is. And the third thing is you do a special project for the board. And that's in the pair of you, the 2 board fellows together. And so we're looking to 8 to 10 hours a month is the commitment. Okay. I'm going to pause there. And Ellen, if you could join us and just talk a little bit about your experience as a board fellow.
Sure. So I was a board fellow at Alternatives in Action, which is a independent charter school. It's located in East Oakland, although it's authorized by Alameda Public Schools. My goal in participating in the program was that I had worked at nonprofits for 5 years before that and had always heard reports back about what the board had decided, and had even seen the board members meeting in a glass conference room, and knew that their work impacted me as an employee and the students that I was serving, but didn't really understand how a board functioned. So I wanted to find out about that. My partner, Jeff Easterling, and I were matched with Alternatives in Action. We had a short conference call with a few of the board members, and then we were able to attend their board meetings throughout the year. We attended 4 meetings, 3 in person, and then 1 once everybody went online. And our project was to actually provide recommendations to the board for how they could rebuild their board, because they had gone through a significant transition in both the school leadership and the leadership of the board. And that had been somewhat traumatic for the organization and had even led them to question whether they would keep functioning. That was about a year before. So it was a pretty dramatic real life example. Jeff and I did a lot of secondary research in how boards should function. We learned about sort of the best practices, particularly for nonprofit boards. And then we interviewed all of the current board members, as well as quite a few previous board members, to learn about their experience, what kind of information they needed, and staff at the school as well. And then we, in our final board meeting, provided our recommendations to the folks. I will say it was very self-directed. We really had to map out for ourselves what we were going to be working on. We received a somewhat vague suggestion from our mentor on the board, and then we took it from there. So I think recommendations that I would have if you participate in the program are to work with your partner to establish a regular cadence of meetings, make sure that you sort of have goals set for yourself, sort of really basic project management best practices to make sure that you, because it's something that has a deadline or a final deliverable in April, it can get pretty easy to kind of put it off or say, hey, we're not going to meet this week because we've got finals, or we're adjusting to our first year as an MBA, or whatever it is. So just organizing yourself from there. But for me, it was a really great opportunity to see what it's like on a board, and also sort of develop my own knowledge of how boards should function.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions. Okay, I'm reading them as we're talking, so let me take them sequentially if I can. What are we looking for in students? We're looking for commitment. We don't expect you to be experts in this. We're trying to introduce you to a new experience. There's no sense being a board fellow if you've been on a board before. So we're really looking for commitment. These organizations are so extended this year, and they need somebody who will follow through on the commitment that you make now or soon to stick with it all year. So we want to know, that's what we're looking for really, is the commitment from you. One thing that might help this year is we really are assigning coaches to each pair of fellows. So there will be somebody kind of marching through this year with you that can give you guidance. As I'm thinking about it, all of the coaches also have been consultants, organizational consultants, so can help you craft a project in the time that you have available. The application link we will open up shortly. We wanted to keep it until people knew what you'd be getting into. The 10 organizations, they don't know yet, so I'd rather not mention them by name. Let me describe them, and we're sending something out to them this week, so let me describe what they do. So one is a place that houses homeless families. A couple are scholarship funds for high school students that provide both scholarships and mentors to underserved students to get them in and through college. One is an urban dance troupe. One, like Ellen's, is a charter school. One is a very large kind of multi-service out of poverty organization. One is a health, and one is a Y, you know what that does, and one is about mentors and coaches helping kids. So those are the kinds of organizations. Did I miss anybody's question? The 20 spots are for, we hadn't thought about first year versus second year. Generally, we have so many first years, we don't have second years. They are all for MBA students and probably first years. I don't know. I can't answer the first year versus second year. I can say MBAs. Interested in the last one around mentorship and coaching. So that is an organization that actually has volunteers going into the schools, helping classrooms of kids in critical thinking and writing. How do we pair the students? That's a really good question. We're looking for kind of maybe different backgrounds that you can bring to the project. And I can't emphasize enough, it is about commitment. We also have projects from the clients, which we have to review with them. but we'll also try to connect some of your skills with some of their projects. So a number of them are adapting to COVID. A number of them are going online. How can they help their kids online? One or two are about growth, actually. Can they monetize or develop an earned income strategy from what they're doing, which is deeply embedded in equity and diversity? What else? Another one is about increasing their outreach in terms of equity. So we have a few that are COVID or equity related, probably about half of them. Okay. And another couple are about revenue streams, earned revenue. So not fundraising, but earned revenue.
Nora, it looks like there was also a question about how, if someone's interested in that nonprofit boards class, how they would go about enrolling in that.
Okay, so all you have to do is for fall, for first years, this is the first time that you can actually enroll in a class. And I would contact the MBA office to ask how you do that, because it was a decision that was just made last week. Ellen, you might be able to help here. How do you enroll in the 294 courses?
So what I would say is first think about your course load for the fall, particularly if you're taking all of the core classes, because I definitely felt like I was sort of stretched with the academic load with all of my core classes in the fall and just getting my feet under me. And then so if you're going to do that, I would recommend meeting with someone from the full-time academics team. If you're just planning on taking it in the spring, then you would bid on the class during the bidding process. And that takes place in, I think, late November, early December. And you'll get a ton of information, and there will be information sessions about that will come from the academics team. So you'll use your points to bid on the class.
The only thing I would add to that is if you take the nonprofit boards course in the fall, it's 2 Sundays, and you're going to be a board fellow anyway. So it may help clarify, it's more time, but it also may help clarify your role a little more. So, fall or spring, it's up to you, but I think there are benefits as well as downsides to taking in the fall. There was a question, let me go back, about social impact marketing is only offered in the fall. Any other questions that are pending at this point?
There was a question for me about my goals and objectives in joining the board fellows and what I found most rewarding. My goal was to understand how nonprofit boards worked, to get to observe the good, the bad, and the ugly, and also get to work on a little bit of a like a mini consulting project. That was a skill set I was hoping to develop. I am not interested in going into consulting, but I felt like that would be a good skill set to have. And I was able to do that. I think what I found most rewarding was getting to know each of the board members through personal interviews with them. I was building my network through that, because there are a lot of folks who are either currently or previously in the education field. And getting to collaborate with my partner, Jeff, to develop our recommendations and deliver them in the final meeting felt really valuable.
Okay, and thanks for noting that email from the MBA office with more information. The other thing I will say is it is new that you can take an elective other than a speaker series in the fall, and that is to accommodate the nonprofit boards course in particular. But again, it's up to you, either one. We'll offer the spring version early in the spring semester, so you'll still get the benefit of that knowledge through half of your board fellows placement. Okay. So let's go ahead to social sector solutions. Mark? Okay. So this is actually a spring course, but there's a reason I'm bringing it up now, because a lot of the activity happens in the fall for you. This is an applied innovation class. You're all required to take one applied innovation class. There are many of them. This is one. I think what's distinguishing about social sector solutions is that it is a highly experiential, real consulting experience. It is our partnership with McKinsey & Company. I co-teach this course with Paul Jansen, who is the founder of McKinsey's social sector practice. It's a 3-unit course on Tuesday evenings, 6 to 9:30. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of hard work. We are recruiting students now. You can see, clients now. You can see from the dates up on the screen that there are team lead info sessions in September. There's an info session for team members on October 20th, and you bid in early November for this course. But it's one you should be thinking about now because of those applications. So I'll explain more in a minute. Recruiting clients now. So this is really an in-depth, you're working on a team. The team lead is generally somebody with past consulting experience. So if any of you have consulting experience and want to move up into not just an associate role, but more of an engagement manager role, leading the team, being the front of the team to the client, scoping the project, think about becoming a team lead. For the rest of you, it's a team of 5. There's generally an MBA team lead, a couple of other MBAs, a graduate student from another school with some content knowledge, and an undergrad. So it's an interdisciplinary team by design. Clients we're talking to now are almost all about adapting in this, new world, and about equity and about growth. If you know any social enterprises, nonprofits, or publics that you think would be a good match, let me know. We're talking to people now. We have real results, and that's what we're after. Social sector solutions, which we call S-cubed, is all about getting real results in the world. So I'll give you an example. Last year, one of our clients was the Common App, which some of you use to apply to college, right? And Common App serves 4-year colleges and serves them quite well. But as they're looking ahead and looking at being more equitable and more open for diverse populations, one of the questions came up, could they serve community colleges? And it was a conundrum because most people go, if they're going to go to a community college, go to their local community college. So why would you apply via Common App? What our team came up with was 13 different innovative ideas. They and the client chose 2. One of them came to the forefront, which was an unusual solution by which you could apply to community college now and simultaneously to a 4-year college, and you would get what's called a tag to ensure your enrollment in that 4-year college. Common App asked our team to present to one of their funders, the Kresge Foundation. And so by June, this was funded and is starting. And this was a consultation from last January to May. Give you another example, Berkeley Food Network. For those who are who have food insecurity, in Berkeley, it's a very high number. I think you might be very surprised, and many of them students, but not all. And so Berkeley Food Network came to us 3 years ago, asking us for a kickoff plan. It was a startup. What could they do to provide food for the hungry? And they followed the plan. They're up and running. They're a much better resource, and they're coming back now and saying, okay, great, we can provide food, but you know what we're not providing? We're not providing sustainably sourced, fresh food, and we're not providing food that's really culturally appropriate for who we're serving. So we want a new business plan from a new team this coming year. That's social sector solutions. So again, why are we bringing it up now? Because it's something to think about. If you want to be a team lead, that happens very early in the semester. I will start meeting with people very, very quickly who want to become a team lead. And then the info session on October 20th. There's a reference here to the application. So for social sector solutions, team lead is an individual application. For anybody else, you bid points to get into the class, but then there's an application beyond that. And the application is really to place you on the right team. So we're going to ask you, what do you bring to it? What are your skills? What's your knowledge? What do you want to learn and get out of it? And we really are serious about placing you on a team where you will get what you want. And we task the team lead to get you that. And then you rank order your choices in the organization so you absolutely have a say. Each team has a McKinsey coach. They're doing the same thing, side by side. You know, who wants to be involved as coaches and rank order their interests. So I'll pause here. Any questions on social sector solutions? Yes. Okay. So what's the application process for non-MBA students? It is, you don't have to bid to get in this, but you do have to apply. It's the same application as for the MBAs. The difference is we do need to give preference to the MBAs. So if they bid points to get into the class and they're at the level that points are accepted, they're in the class automatically, and then they fill out the applications. For anybody else, you just fill out the applications. Okay, and Ellen's saying, absolutely think about your commitment to social sector solutions. Is that what you're talking about, Ellen?
No, there was a question about whether doing S Cubed and Berkeley Board Fellows, doing both of them was too much. And I said, no, especially if you're excited about both of them. And think about your commitment, your plate as a whole, and what all you're committing to. And if those are the things you're most excited about, then go for doing both of them.
Yeah, I would say trying to think very quickly, but at many of the SQ students are Berkeley Board Fellows as well. One question is, does it make sense to stagger? I think from where you're sitting right now, it makes logical sense. But, and Ellen, I'd like your view here too, but my experience tells me with students and observation is second year is more open because you have electives, but you're looking for jobs. And so SQ probably makes more sense in the fall, especially if you're at all thinking about consulting. It will also really help you prep for interviews, and it will give you a product that you can present in interviews. And we have had countless students use their S-cubed experience in interviews, not just for consulting, but for banking or anything else. Board fellows you could certainly do in second year. Again, it's most first years who do it. So just based on my observation of what students tend to do, it tends to be first year. Ellen, what do you think? Would you have, now that you're in second year, would you prefer to have waited for board fellows, or glad you did it when you did?
I'm glad that I did it when I did. I think the MBA in general is like, there's so many opportunities, and you really have to prioritize what you're interested in while also keeping your mind open to, like, it's a time to try new things and grow. But if you say yes to everything, then at the end of October, you're going to be exhausted and burned out and not excited about anything. And if you sort of commit too early to only doing one or two things and you don't try new things, then you're going to feel like you missed out. So it's finding that balance. And I think some weeks you're going to feel like you really struck the balance well and you committed to the right things. And some weeks you're going to feel like, oh man, I said yes to too much, or I said no to too much. So it's just figuring that out as you go.
Right. Because other things that will come up are, in addition to classes, are student clubs that you might want to take a role in. There are some during the school year fellowships or placements. So think about those as well. Okay. All right, Mark, can we move on to the Student Advisory Board? Okay. So this is a group of students that helps give feedback to the center that I'm faculty director of, that offers between undergrads and MBAs about 20 classes, a number of programs. You've heard about a couple of them, and looks ahead at programming. What should we be offering? How should we be doing things differently? You also get an opportunity to network with our other advisory board, which is largely alumni who are leaders out in the world. And we can ask you to, if you have time, to work with us on some special projects. I'll give you an example. Right now, this fall, we're doing a research project on social enterprises in California and their financial needs. And we're working with Dahlberg Global Advisors to do this. There is no repository or list of social enterprises in California. So if that's something you're interested in, you could work with us on that. We're going to be doing research in the fall and the spring, excuse me, on board chairs, people who are the chairs of the board of nonprofits and what they focus on. And so interviews with prominent board chairs. We're going to be writing a number of cases in international global development and in DEI and equity from Los Angeles, California. So those are kinds of things that you could be involved in. And Ellen, you're on the board. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience? I know it was really unusual given COVID hit in the middle of the year last year, but.
Yeah, so I was on the advisory board, and last year actually we canceled our first meeting because of smoke days, which we're now experiencing right now, and then I think our second one because of power outage, and then we did end up meeting in February. So it was a chance for all of us on the student advisory board to talk about sort of what we felt like was going really well within the CSSL space. And suggestions, and the staff members from CSSL asked us some questions about kind of what are the ways that students get their information most easily. Should we be posting on Slack or campus groups or emails? And so we had a chance to chat in that way. I think it was somewhat of a limited commitment last year just because of plagues and fires and pestilence or whatever happened. But yeah, it was a great opportunity just to kind of interact with other folks from different schools, different departments, and with the staff of CSSL.
And this will be my first year heading it because we had a different executive director last year. So I'm really going to be looking at what should we be, are there classes, are there gaps in what's being offered? Not just by us, but at the school that we might step into? Are there things that you would want to see that you don't see now? I'm really interested in filling some of those gaps. I'm really interested in improving what we're doing. Yeah, those are the questions that we're going to focus on this year. And I think you can see application by September 18th. There are second years and first years, obviously staggered for obvious reasons. So Ellen will be on that. We're looking for a few people who are first years who can help us as well. So let me pause there and open it up for any questions that haven't been posed yet.
No, I had a question about how you sort of think of social sector and whether you include within that any sort of environmental lens. I noticed previously the Berkeley Board Fellows had environmental organizations on there, but this year they've been sort of cut off because of COVID, and was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, environmental, look, the social sector is big. I mean, for us, social sector is, it's nonprofit, it's social enterprises, it's publics, and it is across all industries. So it's environmental, it's health, it's economic equality, it's arts and culture, it's human service, it's all of those things. And the only reason there's nothing in environment is just for board fellows and just for this year. Because, and you know, that was a hard choice. It was a hard choice. We know there's a lot of interest in the environment. We just felt that kids right now aren't going to school. You know, they've had a summer where most activities have been canceled. Organizations are struggling to provide any kind of extracurricular activity. And if we had to make a choice right now for this limited period, that's what we should do. But there will be environmental, I'm sure, in S-cubed, and in our classes, certainly, there's plenty of environmental. So social sector is not meant to exclude environmental. It's just, it would be a mouthful to say Center for Social and Environmental section. Yeah. But environmental, absolutely. Others.
Hi, are you going to cover Berkeley Innovative Solutions as well?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you going to be covering Berkeley Innovative Solutions as well? Because I feel like there is some overlap between that and social sector solutions as well. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm sorry, but that doesn't come under us, and I don't know enough to be accurate about it. So I suggest you talk to somebody else. Who Who runs Berkeley Innovative Solutions? Is it the Energy Center?
Honestly, I'm not sure myself. I've seen a lot of announcements.
Yeah,
That
okay.
was
I think
there
Burke
for a while.
does. I think that's right. I think it comes out of Burke. And it has a narrower focus. So it came after social sector solutions and it narrowed its focus. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else? Well, let's do this. If there are no more kind of general questions, these are contacts for Ellen and myself. Happy to answer any other questions. I'll stay on the line, Ellen, if you would too, just for a few more minutes in case anybody wants to talk individually. Happy to have those conversations. And you can always contact us by email. Happy to talk to you about any of your individual concerns. We know there's a lot. You know, the good news is there's so much available at Haas. Okay, there you have just come to a wonderful, wonderful place, particularly in terms of social impact. There's so much before you. The challenge is to pick and choose, as Ellen said, but we're happy to help you make your individual decisions if we can. Okay, so thank you all so much for coming. This deck will be posted. S cubed is only in the spring semester. Traditionally, the organizations have been in the Bay Area, but because everything is virtual and because our organizations last year were either East Coast US or international, they're going to be all over the globe. Okay, and then you just saw a website where everything is posted. Okay. Yes, before bidding, you will know what the SQ projects are. We're lining them up now. I'll give you a taste of what we're hearing. I mean, they're phenomenal. I'm a partisan. I love not just this course, but the clients. They're different from year to year. So I won't mention their names, but one client is a potential client because we have more, we have to select them. But one client we're considering is an organization that builds healing spaces. Picture like small homes, but they're not set up on their own for people coming out of prison or out of domestic violence relationships. Okay, and they have huge demand. They need a business plan. Another is a family and mostly youth serving organization who is looking at how can they really be more true to an equity lens throughout all that they do in terms of health for families. Another that I'm in conversation with now is an organization that is recruiting African-American men from around the country to come teach elementary school students in a local school district. And the question there is a fiscal, a financial one. How do they make this model work? Because they're offering housing and accreditation and all of these other things. Who am I missing? I'm missing one or two for now. An organization that trains young women of color entrepreneurs. And so those conversations, our first deadline for S cubed applications is until the end of this month. Second deadline is mid-September, which obviously before you bid, but we'll know more as we go along. And if you want to find out, as we go, who's in there, because people take S cubed for a number of reasons. One reason is they want to learn about consulting and see if it's for them. And another reason is they want to learn more about the social sector in general or make some impact, while you're here. And what does it mean to manage for two bottom lines, financial and social? What does that really look and feel like? And a third reason why some people choose social sector solutions is the particular project. They're really, it speaks to them in some really heartfelt way. And one from last year that occurs to me is an environmental organization, Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, that oversees thousands of acres of parks in Northern California. And what they wanted to do was see how they could be more responsive to a specific population that they weren't currently serving. And so they raised ideas of those populations. It might be more young families, it might be more seniors, it might be more persons with disability. And what the team landed on was people with mental health challenges, particularly isolation and loneliness, because you can see the link between being on your own, alone at home, and being out in nature, which is healing, and among other people, which is connecting. Okay. All right, so with that, we'll stay here. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to see your faces here, and look forward to working with you throughout the next 2 years. And anybody who wants to stay and have an individual conversation, delighted to do that too. So thank you all. And Ellen, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Hi, Nora.
Yes.
I have a quick question about, I have an organization in mind that might be a good partner for the social sector solutions.
Great.
It's my previous organization's a global health company that's really expanding into like social enterprise as a way to diversify funding. I haven't spoken to them yet, but just wanted to get more information to see if you would be interested. I can definitely send you more information, or if that's not quite in line with what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Sure. Why don't you send me more information? Also, if you Google social sector solutions, you'll come to our page.
Okay.
It has examples of former projects and types of projects. So you can kind of look at that and see, all right, is it the kind of thing? But we're really open. I mean, part of the joy of teaching this for students and for coaches and for instructors is we're looking for a diversity of different kinds of organizations with different entrepreneurial questions. So, if it's anywhere in the universe, we would be interested. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
And health and global are both absolutely of interest.
Sure.
And enterprise. So, on the face of it, yes. Yes.
Got it. Okay. I'll send more information. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Hi there. This question
Hi,
is
Yeah.
both, I guess, for Nora and for Ellen. And just, by the way, thank you both for being here and for hosting this panel. It's been incredibly helpful. I was the one who asked the question about the Berkeley Board Fellows, Ellen, about what your main objective was, and then also what you found most rewarding. I come from nonprofit as well. I actually was in fundraising originally, and so I worked really, really closely with the board of directors for the previous organization that I was with. And so I guess I was just trying to search for potentially like additional objectives. If I'm already, I guess, fairly familiar with how boards operate, I'm wondering, do you think, I don't want to say like still worth it, because I would imagine this is incredibly rewarding and I would still really welcome the opportunity, but I am just a bit more curious about other, I guess, takeaways or other, I guess I'm wondering, is the main objective to learn how a board operates, in which case maybe I should focus my efforts on a different way to provide impact, if that makes sense?
That's a really good question. And I'm glad you're thinking about kind of your prioritizing of activities. I guess if we were looking at it from the perspective of like, why should you participate? What will you get out of it? It's an opportunity to observe how another board at a different organization runs. So my sense is that boards really run the gamut in how they function. And so you may see like, hey, things were functioning really well at the nonprofit that I worked at. I didn't know that. Or you may be like, oh, wow, that was not going great. Now I'm getting to see another side. So it'd be a chance to diversify your viewpoint in that way. And the project that you work on with the board, mine happened to be about the board governance itself. My sense for my classmates is that often the projects are focused on something else. So maybe it's focused on like developing a social media strategy for the organization, or it's focused on thinking about their growth plan and developing a strategic plan. So, you might be able to develop skills in another area. It depends on the needs of the organization that you're matched with, but I think you could probably put in your application, hey, I'm really interested in like projects that are focused on this. And if there isn't one that's a good fit, then I'm okay with opting out of the program this fall. And then on sort of on the con side of like, why not participate? I think your time is limited and you're going to have to say no to some things during your time at Haas. So just thinking about your sort of your plate as a whole and what's on your plate and what are you prioritizing.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then just a really quick follow-up on the administrative side, if that's okay. Are the current 10 organizations that are tentatively, that we're partnering with, are they repeat organizations or are they all new? I'm just curious, like about familiarity.
Yeah, about half and half.
Okay, wonderful.
Probably more new. Probably
Okay.
2/3 new, 1/3 repeat. I'd also like to weigh in on your earlier question, Julie, having been a nonprofit executive director 3 times, serving on boards. Serving on a board is very different from working on a board, working with a board, in my experience. I have a very different point of view when I'm a board member from when I've been a fundraiser or an executive director. So just to weigh in there. And the other piece I think to think about is, one way we think about governance is, it's not just about being on a nonprofit. It's about developing a different kind of leadership skill in governance that then is translatable. For instance, with women in particular. If you look at women corporate directors and you look at their resumes, they are steep in nonprofit boards before they flip to corporate boards. So it's a different skill set. Again, is that something you want? You know, how high is that on your list? But it is a different kind of experience, I think.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Yeah, I didn't have any questions. I just thought it was like helpful to listen to others as well.
Great.
So
Listening is always a good skill. Yeah, good.
or I guess I may be allowed. I do have a question.
Okay.
I guess because like I just think back like reasons I chose to come to Haas, and one of them was to like participate as part of the Berkeley Board Fellows program, and the fact that like slots are being limited this year. Is there a plan to provide additional opportunities similar to this one in the future? If this is something like I'd really like to get that experience of, I'm just trying to, I guess, better understand.
Yeah. No, I understand.
It's something
your
I like.
question.
I know that, yeah, there's a lot of competition for it.
So certainly put that on your application for board fellows, that it's a reason to us. I mean, we're looking for seriousness and commitment if we have a limited resources.
Okay.
You can take either of the board fellows courses to learn to be a board member. And in both fall and spring, I'm working with those instructors. They're doing some very experiential exercises that will put you in the role of being on a board. And next year, we'll be revamping it broader, probably. So next year, you will have a larger chance as well.
Okay, awesome. That's helpful to hear.
Sure.
Thank you. Have a good
And
day.
thanks for coming for Haas for Berkeley Board Fellows. That's exciting for us to hear.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
I have a quick question about what are some of the skills that you would expect to gain out of Berkeley Board Fellows versus X Cubed?
I can start, and then Ellen, you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Berkeley Board Fellows, you learn from being in a board meeting and committee how to act as part of a group. It's group decision making. You're not there, you're an individual board member, but you're not doing any managing, right? So it's more group oversight, policy, higher level. And then for your project, it's a project. You know how to do a project, right? That's not that won't be something new for you. I think the new skills would be more serving on the board itself. Ellen, anything you would add to Berkeley Board Fellows?
I think the comparison I would give is, I think Berkeley Board Fellows is over a longer period of time. It's obviously focused on the board. Part of the experience is just observing the board meetings. But I don't think it goes as in depth into the project as S-Cubed does.
So S-Cubed, it's a 3-unit class.
Mm-hmm.
We ask for 8 to 12 hours a week of your time.
Yeah.
You are going to get to know an organization much more intimately than you would know as a Berkeley Board Fellow at a deeper level. You're going to learn about management and operations and metrics and people management and all the kinds of things that you have to know to make a good recommendation about whatever the organization is coming to you with a question of. So if you're interested in at all exploring working in the social sector, it would be S-Cubed. If you're interested in kind of problem solving, developing your problem solving team skills,
Mm-hmm.
S-Cubed. If you're interested in developing a kind of higher level resume for a career, it's probably Berkeley Board Fellows.
I think that's very helpful.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So for the nonprofit class, I noticed it's only twice and for a long period of time during that time, right?
Which class? I'm sorry.
The nonprofit board one.
Yes, it's 2 Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 Sundays, 9 to 5,
Okay.
both
So
in spring.
So would you be expected to be connecting the dots between if you were being a board fellow along with the types of discussion in the course?
Yes, you would have other, and I don't know that I made explicit that you have to take the course if you're a board fellow.
Yeah, you did.
Did that? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. I got it. Thanks. In the course, it's a mixture of people. So you also have evening weekend students who tend to be more senior in their career and serve on boards.
Oh, okay.
I have people who are interested in serving on boards and people who serve on boards either through Berkeley Board Fellows or in their life. So there's a much greater mix of experience in the classroom.
Okay, great. Yeah, definitely.
You have some simulations in the classroom.
Yeah. So
and you'll hear from a panel of board members and you'll hear from a panel of executive directors or staff what the experience is like.
I see. And then as for the time on the board, as a board fellow, you'd be working with one other student who would be a fellow and then the rest of the board. Is that
correct?
Okay.
And a board committee, which is a smaller unit of the board. Yeah. And you have a coach. We just surround you with coaches and instructors.
Yeah, it sounds great that you guys are shifting with based on the situation, shifting more resources into the coaching versus maybe having more fellows. So that's very interesting.
Thank you. It was a hard decision to make. Thanks for that support. It was not done easily or lightly. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Bye, Kelly.
Bye.
Thank you.